I'll go ahead and call the September 17th, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting into session. This meeting of the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Is there a motion?
So move.
Have a motion. Commissioner Cook, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Johnson. Any questions? Without objection, Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
19 yes.
Oh, we have a quorum. Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to ask the members and all of our guests in the audience, if you would please rise. I'd like to call on our chaplain, Chaplain Trey Gooch, to lead us in our prayer. If you'd come forward, and then in turn lead us in our pledge to the American flag and to the Tennessee flag, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, this past Sunday, a friend of mine, and who is also a co-worker of mine, his name is Jordan, he and his wife, Arlene, was on their way to church, and a car had hit them. They thought that it was simple fender bender, so they pulled over. But it wasn't a simple fender bender. It was a carjacking and an abduction. Jordan was 23 years old. He and his wife were high school sweethearts, and they've been married about 3 years. During this whole ordeal, Jordan pleaded with D'Angelo, who was the guy that abducted them, to spare his wife an unborn baby girl. Moments later, Jordan was executed and his body dumped on the side of the road. So tonight I would like to dedicate our prayer to Jordan and his family. Let's go to our Father. O Lord our God, from whom we move and have our ever being. Father, we quite often just cannot understand the evil that lives among us. But what we do know is that today we know in part, but according to your promise, one day we will know in full. We also know that you are in control of your creation and that your Son sits right next to you, interceding in our behalf. We know you love us, Father. It was you who breathed the gift of life through our nostrils. Father, to Jordan, who is now living among the heavenly host, would you let him know that his spirit dwells in the hearts of his friends and family, and it will forevermore. And to Arlene, would you send the Holy Ghost to dwell among her and her family, to give them comfort and to give them peace. And to D'Angelo, and Father, I must confess it's very difficult for me to say this, but would you please have mercy on his soul? We ask these in all things through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
3 white stars on the field of blue.
God keep them strong and ever true. It is with pride and love that we salute the flag of Tennessee. You may be seated. I'd like to welcome all of our guests here tonight. Thank you for coming, and we've got a lot of friends and family. Big night for some, so and others, I see some, I can't see some smiling, but behind that mask, I'm sure they are. At this point in time, I'd like to call on, recognize District 10 Commissioner Wayne Blair and District 10 Rod Key. Commissioner Blair has already been sworn in by Judge Atwood. I'd like to recognize both of them. Congratulations. Commissioner Blair, you already been sworn in. At this point in time, I'd like to call on Judge Tidwell. He is here, Barry Tidwell, to swear in our newest commissioner to this body, Rod Key. Rod, if you'll come on up with your wife and family, and Judge, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I've known Rod since he was, I know I was in college and he may have been 2. I won't tell any stories right now till after he's sworn in. But he is a fine man with a fine family, and I'm certainly proud to be here tonight to swear him in as Commissioner of District 19. Are you ready to take the oath?
I'm ready.
All right, if you will repeat after me. I, Rod Key, do solemnly swear
I, Rod Key, do solemnly swear
that I will execute with fidelity
that I will execute with fidelity
the duties of County Commissioner in the 19th District
the duties of County Commissioner in the 19th District
of Rutherford County, Tennessee,
of Rutherford County, Tennessee,
to which I have been elected,
to which I have been elected,
and to which I am about to assume,
and to which I am about to assume,
without prejudice, partiality, or favor,
without prejudice, partiality, or favor,
to the best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Tennessee,
and the Constitution of the State of Tennessee,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations, Commissioner.
Commissioner Blair, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take just a couple of minutes to thank this commission for appointing me and allowing me to serve. And congratulations, Commissioner Key. I'm looking forward to working with you. I'd also like to thank the voters of the 10th District for giving me the opportunity to continue to serve. Would like to thank Judge Atwood for making it an accommodation so both my children could see my oath, and that wanted to congratulate Judge Atwood on her election as the first female elected to the Circuit Court in the state of Tennessee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Absolutely. Congratulations to you too, Commissioner.
Sir.
Thank you for coming back. I want to take a moment of personal privilege and recognize, I know we've got 2 that we're going to recognize here in a moment, but I do believe we do have members of our school board who have are current, and then we have some new ones that might be here that have been recently elected. We'd like to congratulate them, and they've probably already been sworn in, but if we could, at this point in time, have any elected school board member, please stand and let us recognize you. Thank you all, and congratulations for the newly elected school board members. I know you'll serve us well. There's a great article in the paper about women power on the school board. So we will move on to the next item. I'd like to call on Chairman Pro Tem Jeff Phillips for approval of the minutes. Commissioner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor Ketron. On your iPad, under page 574, Public Hearings REZ 20-015, the second paragraph has had an incorrect name listed. The clerk has corrected that. With that one correction, I find the minutes to be in order and move that they be approved as presented.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Cook, any additions or deletions? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Motion passes. Madam Clerk, it's come to my attention we did not call roll, so at this point in time, if you would please call the roll for the record.
Commissioner Gammon,
Here.
Commissioner Piercy,
Here.
Commissioner Rather,
Here.
Commissioner P,
Here.
Commissioner Cook,
Here.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Here.
Commissioner Reed,
Here.
Commissioner Gurley,
Here.
Commissioner Blair,
Here.
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Stevens,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Gammon,
Here.
Commissioner Harris,
Here.
Commissioner Dodd,
Here.
Commissioner Phillips,
Present.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Here.
Commissioner Gooch,
Here.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
We have a quorum, 20 present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We do have a quorum. That brings us to item H on the agenda. Members, a resolution of sympathy for Susan Walkup Boney, presented by Commissioner Virgil Gammon. Commissioner Gammon, if you make your way forward, and you'll be recognized in the well. Have you got the resolution?
I'm going to remove this if no one minds, but I'm very humbled that I'm able to do this. I was Susan's commissioner. I've known Susan for quite a while, served with her on the insurance committee when she was over insurance, and found her. She was just very, very always supportive of employees. She knew the taxpayer mark, but she really gave me great guidance and decisions I needed to make. Let me first ask, is anyone from Susan's family here?
I believe the family's here.
Would you please come up? And most definitely, we all are sorry for her loss. She was a great employee of the county. She served the county, and I did appreciate her. Resolution of sympathy, whereas it was of great sadness that the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners learned of the death of Miss Susan Walkup Boney, a former Rutherford County Director of Insurance and member of the Insurance and Benefits Committee, and whereas Miss Boney is survived by her husband of 54 years, Jerry E. Boney, daughter Ashley Boney Pennington, and her husband Mark of Las Casas, Tennessee. The grandchildren Garrett and Brooks Pennington of Las Casas, Tennessee, and Sister Aldine Walkup Phillips of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Whereas Miss Boney began with Rutherford County on August the 17th, 1987, and as an insurance clerk was promoted to Director of Insurance on October 16th, 1989. She held that position until she retired on July 1st, 2005. After retiring, she continued to serve on the Rutherford County Benefits and Insurance Committee, and whereas Miss Boney served as a faithful member of the Bethel United Methodist Church, and whereas we know that her passing has caused great sadness to her family and friends. Now therefore be resolved that Rutherford County Board of Commissioners at its regular session on the 17th day of September 2020 does hereby extend sincere sympathy to the family of Miss Boney, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of sympathy be forwarded to the family of Miss Boney by the clerk of this legislative body. Appreciate it. Y'all want to say anything? Okay. All right.
Make a motion. Make a motion.
Make a motion that this be accepted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Piercy. Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon. Commissioner Piercy.
Yes.
Commissioner Rather.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Cook.
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner Cush.
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley.
Yes.
Commissioner Blair.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips. Commissioner McAdoo. Commissioner Key.
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch.
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Motion passes 20 yes.
Resolution passes. Thank you. I believe the Boneys have stepped out, but I was going to make a comment. Anybody else that knows Susan, she was I'd always see her at the MTSU basketball game sitting with her sister Aldine. They were big Blue Raider fans. Her sister worked in the president's office for a number of years, and Susan was a great employee here for us as well. So she'll be missed. Next, we have a resolution of appreciation for time served. I'd like to call on Commissioner Wayne Blair. We're going to recognize a couple of gentlemen who have given a lot of time and service to our community. Commissioner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Prior to serving on this county commission, I attended numerous county meetings over the years, and I always thought having the opportunity to recognize and honor our citizens who have made significant contributions to community service, to leadership, and public service to Rutherford County was probably one of the more enjoyable aspects of this position. The two gentlemen that we are honoring tonight are perfect examples of those qualities. I know personally the sacrifices they have made to serve the public, and I know they have a heartfelt love for our county community. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to ask former school board chair Terry Hodge and his family, and former chair and county commissioner Jeff Jordan and his family, if they would join us here.
Yeah, please do. Please come on up and join Commissioner Blair at the well. Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Hodge, bring the family. We're all a family here.
Hi, guys. Resolution of appreciation for Terry Hodge. Whereas Terry Hodge has served Rutherford County with dedication and distinction as a member of the Rutherford County Schools Board of Education since 2004, And whereas Mr. Hodge represented Zone 5 and was chairman of the Rutherford County Schools Board for 2 years and was the first to attain certification as a Master School Board member in Rutherford County. And whereas through his tenure, the Rutherford County Schools Board of Education has directed a building program to include 11 new schools and 16 extensions. And whereas Mr. Hodge proudly serves Rutherford County with involvement in the Rutherford County Crime Stoppers Board, the Stones River Girls Softball, the Murfreesboro Rotary Club, and the Kiwanis Club. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners at its regular session on this, the 17th day of September 2020, does hereby extend sincere appreciation to Terry Hodge for his dedication, service to the citizens of Rutherford County, and wish him much success and happiness in all of his future endeavors. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of appreciation be forwarded to Mr. Hodge by the clerk of this legislative body. Resolved this the 17th day of September 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Phillips. Madam Secretary. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Mr. Chair, would you like to say something?
I'd like to just first like to thank the commission for this recognition. It really means a lot to me. Also, I would really like to say thank you to you as a commission. Over the 16 years I've had to serve, it's always been a good relationship, and personally I appreciate the funding that you've always give our school system. As you know, it takes both sides to produce what we got, and I just want to thank you for your part. And also, as the mayor mentioned, we got school board members here tonight. I'd like to just thank each one of you for showing up. Directors out there, and Mr. Boulder is out there. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution of appreciation, Jeff Jordan. Whereas Jeff Jordan has served Rutherford County with dedication and distinction since 2006, and whereas Mr. Jordan was District 13 County Commission from September 2006 until August 2014, and whereas Mr. Jordan served on the steering committee and was chairman of Health and Education Committee for 5 of his 8 years, and whereas Mr. Jordan worked at the Rutherford County Board of Education as an educator from August 1967 until he retired in August 2000. He worked at Thurman Francis, Central Middle, Riverdale High School, Las Casas, Walter Hill, Laverne High School, and Buchanan. he was high school assistant principal and coached basketball and volleyball. And whereas Mr. Jordan was appointed to the Rutherford County School Board September of 2014 to represent Zone 6 until he retired August of 2020, he served as chairman from September 2016 until August 2018. And whereas Mr. Jordan is proud of his WGNS radio work, where he broadcast over 3,000 high school and middle school games in 4 sports from 1983 until 2009. And whereas Mr. Jordan has received numerous awards and is affiliated with many outstanding organizations, and now therefore it be resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners at its regular session on this, the 17th day of September 2020, does hereby extend sincere appreciation to Jeff Jordan for his dedicated service to the citizens of Rutherford County and wish him much happiness, much success and happiness in his future endeavors. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution of appreciation be forwarded to Mr. Jordan by the clerk of this legislative body. Resolved this, the 17th day of September, 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion, and second by Minnie. Commissioner P. in particular. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed, Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
I appreciate that very much. The only reason that Mr. Blair is here tonight, I was on the faculty at Thurman Francis when he was a student there, and somehow he managed to get through the curriculum and pass and go on to Smyrna High School. I've never understood how that happened, but at any rate, he made it. And just a few very quick personal things. First of all, I hope Mr. Harris, who I see on the screen back here, returns to good health soon and can be back on the floor. It was an honor to serve the school board, particularly maybe to serve with Mr. Blair and Mr. Hodge, both of whom I enjoyed the relationship greatly. I know that really school board and county commission funding body, it's not always an easy thing, and the relationship is not always easy. I recognize that, but I think in general, I think although perhaps we recommended it and argued for it, and the taxpayers paid for it, it's this body, you all, who funded, I think, one of the finest school systems in the state. And that's not me, that's the school board, and you, and the taxpayers. And I appreciate it very much, and what you've done for our students, and I appreciate what you are most likely going to do in the future. And I appreciate it, Mr. Blair, the honor very much tonight. Thank you.
Any members like to say anything? Any comments? I'll say that as long as I've worked with both these gentlemen, without reservation, no matter how big the problem has been, or the big issue, whether it be building a new high school, building a new elementary school, or HR issues, from my relationship over the years with both of them, there's no doubt in my mind that they have the best interest of the next generation, the children of Rutherford County, at heart. And I say that on behalf of of this full commission. So we thank you for your service, your dedicated service to the people of Rutherford County. Thank you. Sonia, they're glad you brought candy tonight. It's not Halloween yet, but it's coming, right? Next, members, we have public comments. Are there any public comments to come before this body tonight? See no public comments tonight. We do have one more proclamation from Commissioner Pettus Reed to proclaim Fire Prevention Week. 6:30. I think we need to move into, before we do that. Yeah, public hearings. It's 6:30. Excuse me. It is 6:30. My speaker pro tem was tapping his watch, so it is. We will move into that and come back to you, Commissioner Reed. So at 6:30, we will move into our public hearings. So I would call on our County Planning Director, Doug Demosi, at this point in time. Since we are broadcast, that's why we have to move right at 6:30. So, Mr. Demosi, you're recognized. You're 6 feet away. You can take that off if we may not be able to understand you.
Good evening, Commissioners and Mayor Ketron. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. We have 2 public hearings before you tonight. The public hearing list on your agenda looks a little more daunting than it really is. The first is a rezoning request for property located along Lytle Creek Road. This is an existing planned unit development. What we're considering tonight is an amendment to that and also a portion of the original PUD to be rezoned back to RM. The planned development zoning for this property was approved by the Board of Commissioners back in April of 2019. A preliminary plan for Section 1 was approved by the Planning Commission in October of that same year. Since that time, it's been determined by the applicant's design engineer that a portion of the property is not suitable for development due to hydric soils. All the residential lots that were located on the west side of Lytle Creek Road have been removed from the development, and the additional lots have been added to the east side. Overall, the number of residential lots decreased from the original total of 132 down to 94, which is a reduction of 38 lots. A copy of the originally approved planned development design is included in the pattern book, as long as the proposed design, and you can find those on your iPads tonight. The standards from the original approval have remained the same. Minimum lot sizes is the same, house size, materials, sidewalks, etc. Nothing has changed in regard to the actual houses that will be placed in the subdivision, just merely the number of lots that has been reduced. Also, like I said, approximately there's going to be 19 acres or so of open space. The area that's going to be removed from the planned development will just go back to residential medium density RM, which is what it was zoned to begin with. Consistent with county requirements, a neighborhood meeting was held back on June 8th of this year. Of course, it was a virtual meeting due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. There were some questions asked about the particulars of development as well as the lots that will front along Lytle Creek Road. Access to each section will be from Lytle Creek Drive. Again, the pattern book states that each house will have a driveway that's a minimum of 16 feet wide and will be accommodated at least 2 cars. Applicant had submitted a traffic study with his original application. Everything seemed to check out with that. Again, it has been approved preliminarily, so we're okay in that regard. Screening and buffering is not required since this is a residential development, but I would point out again that there is a significant amount of open space. And the zoning ordinance does have performance standards for noise, dust, et cetera, but they don't apply because this is a residential development. The changes to this layout are appropriate considering the difficulty in developing hydric soils. The overall impact from this development will be reduced as there are 38 less lots than originally approved, and we do feel that is appropriate. Staff recommended approval. There was very little discussion on this item at the Planning Commission's meeting, and they did unanimously recommend approval. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Director Demosi from the Commission? Any questions? Seeing none, then I would call the Rutherford County Commission meeting into recess to hold a public hearing on this request. Public hearing is now in session. Anyone desiring to speak for or against this issue, if you would, please come forward, state your name, your address, and if you're for or against the proposed request. Seeing no one come forward, I declare the public hearing closed and the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners back into session. Is there a motion? Commissioner Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Ketron. In Commissioner Jernigan's absence, I moved that the proposed zoning be approved, including all staff comments and recommendations.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Have a second. Commissioner Serino. Any further discussion or questions? Any further discussion or questions? Without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Serino.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Mr. Demosi, motion passes. You're recognized on the next.
Yes, Mayor Ketchum, thank you.
Request.
Last item for your consideration, it's one application, but it's broken into several parts, as you can see. But I can go into as much or as little detail as you want on these particular items, but I'm not going to read these word for word, but just to kind of give you an overview of what we're proposing. As part of our responsibility as planners for Rutherford County, some of the things that we look at especially are looking at the ordinance to find out if there are tweaks and things that need to be made from time to time. So that's what we have before you tonight. There's about 5 or 6 to go through, so I'll just jump into them just quickly for each one. Our subdivision regulations contain pre-application requirements for preliminary plans and final plats. We don't have anything like that, though, for site plans in the zoning ordinance, so we just thought it'd be appropriate to add some language into the ordinance reflecting that. It's something we do routinely anyway. So you'll see, if you're looking at the planning and engineering report toward the end of the document, you'll kind of see the current language as well as the bolded type. That's what we're going to be adding. Again, just some verbiage there allowing us to require the pre-application conferences or to say they don't apply if we don't feel that they're necessary. The next item concerns timeline for approval of site plans. The zoning ordinance does require site plans to either be approved with conditions, or denied within 90 days of a complete application submittal. There have been limited occasions when applicants have requested a deferral or multiple deferrals sometimes, which can exceed that 90-day limit. We just felt it to be appropriate to add some language in there that was lacking in the ordinance that would allow for that. Again, that was something that was routinely done, but we wanted to put some language in there to that effect. The largest change that we're making has to deal with cluster box units, or the mail kiosks that you're starting to see pop up in newer subdivisions. Regulations for cluster box units or mail kiosks were adopted by the Board of Commissioners back in December of 2018. The Planning Commission at that time was given the authority to approve these site plans in the regulations, and you'll see the existing language in the report. While we were having that discussion, originally when we approved those recommendations and those regulations, the Planning Commission did indicate to staff at that time that there would come a time where they would, since it was so new, they wanted to have the ability to approve them, but after a certain amount of time, they would feel comfortable with staff having the approval authority for those. So that time has come, and they have asked us to make this amendment. So what you see as the proposed language for that item 7 in those regulations, just allows the staff to approve those administratively as opposed to the Planning Commission. The other larger change to this regarded one of our commercial districts, which is the Commercial Neighborhood District. That district does allow for residential uses. It's the only one of the 3 main commercial zones that does. But when we did the ordinance originally back in 2012 and 2013, we put bulk requirements, things like lot area, setbacks, et cetera, for commercial uses, but we neglected to put anything in there for residential uses. That oversight was pointed out to us, and so what you're seeing there is just allowing us to have some bulk regulations, again, for setbacks, lot width, things like that, for residential uses that are allowed in that zone. Under Section 1101 for fences, walls, and hedges, this is just to clarify how we handle fences on corner lots. Just a little bit of language again to help clarify that. And then finally, an Appendix A, which contains definitions and rules for the construction of language. One of the rules listed in the appendix does state the title of the planning director, which also does include their authorized representative. That item was not in there for the county engineer, and the county engineer is cited several times in the ordinance, so we just felt it'd be good to have that in there as well. So that is the kind of the gist of all the recommendations that we have before you tonight for changes to the ordinance. The Planning Commission did conduct a public hearing back in August on this. There was very little discussion, and again, the recommendations were recommended to be approved. So I'll be happy to make any, or answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from Mr. Demosi from the commission? Any questions? Seeing none, then I would call the Rutherford County Commission meeting into recess to hold a public hearing on this request. The public hearing is now in session. Anyone desiring to speak for or against the issue, please come forward. State your name, your address, and if you're for or against the proposed request. Seeing no one come forward, I declare the public hearing closed and Rutherford County Board of Commission back into session. Is there a motion? Commissioner Phillips.
Mayor Ketron, I move that the zoning ordinance amendments be adopted as presented.
Motion to be adopted as presented. Have a second from Commissioner Cush. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, without objection, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Demosi. So members, we'll take you back to item J on your agenda, and this time call on Chairman Pettus Reed to read a proclamation on Fire Prevention Week. You're recognized, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask this time if our county fire chief would come forward, and I think you have someone with you. I'll ask him to come forward with you too. As they are making their way up here to the well, I would like to mention to the fact, I don't know how many of you saw the news this past weekend during all of the raining situations we were having there, but we had a situation out in my district, if any of you have ever heard of the Snail Shell Cave out that way, that you fairly well thought that most people knew whenever you had flash floods coming that you stayed out of that cave, because that is a water flowing cave that we have here in the county. It's in quite large, and it's when you get in there and water starts coming in, you've got problems. Evidently, we had about 4 people to go in that cave. 2 come out early, got out before the water started rising. 2 got to a higher level, but the other 2 called for help. Emergency came, and our fire and emergency rescue came to their aid. The water continued to rise that morning, on Sunday morning. A lot of individuals come to figure out how we were going to do that. There was even a crew out of Chattanooga that is known for water rescues like this that was called in. And they're experts at this, because if you have ever been to Snail Shell Cave, or if you've seen any of the pictures on the news, the water to the mouth of that cave was coming up continually, which would soon cover it. The unknowns were there. Some people said, well, maybe it would go down, but it was continuing to rain. So the decision was made by these individuals, our rescue unit, our individuals from our public safety were there. So they went in and did the water rescue, walked them out through the water in chest-deep water to get them out and rescue those 2 individuals that's still left in there. So this was, I think, quite a heroic situation that you had there. And we're very fortunate to have water rescue here in this county. We're very fortunate to have the fire and rescue service that we have in Rutherford County and what they do, and they practice and train. So that's one reason I wanted the chief to come up here and just say thank you for the job they did there and continue to do across this county. We have not only their efforts, but we also have a lot of volunteer fire departments out here across this county to do the same thing. And we're very fortunate to have this here in Rutherford County, so I just wanted to say that. Rutherford County is getting ready to face another opportunity for us to remember what they do and also keep our homes safe. And we're getting ready to proclaim another situation as far as Fire Prevention Week. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to read a proclamation, and if you'd like to go along and read with me there on your iPads, you're welcome to do that. Proclaiming, whereas Rutherford County is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all living in and visiting Rutherford County, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire, and whereas home fires killed more than 2,720 people in the United States in 2018, according to the National Fire Protection Association, and public fire departments in the United States respond to an estimated 1,318,500 fires. And whereas cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States, where fire departments respond to more than 363,000 structure fires. And whereas 49% of all home fires involve unattended cooking, and 74% of all fire deaths occur in the home. And whereas children under 5 face a higher risk of non-fire burns associated with cooking than being burned in a cooking fire. And whereas Rutherford County's residents should stay in the kitchen when frying food on the stovetop, keep a 3-foot kid-free zone around cooking areas, and keep anything that can catch fire away from stovetops. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. And whereas Rutherford County's first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Rutherford County's residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes, and whereas the 2020 Fire Prevention Week theme, Serve Up Fire Safety in the Kitchen, effectively serves to remind us to stay alert and use caution when cooking to reduce the risk of kitchen fire. Now, therefore, we, the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners, do hereby recognize October 4th through the 10th, 2020 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the Rutherford County, and urge all the citizens of Rutherford County to check their kitchens for fire hazards and to use safety cooking practices during Fire Prevention Week 2020 to support the many public safety activities efforts of Rutherford County's fire and emergency services. Proclaimed the 17th day of September 2020. Mr. Chairman, I move that this proclamation be approved.
I have a motion on the proclamation of approval and a second by Commissioner Cook and all others. Commissioner Gooch.
Thank you. On the section where it's advised that you stay in the kitchen and have a 3-foot zone from kids, we might want to add that if you're frying bacon, to have your dog on the other side of the house with the door shut. Just a thought.
That's a personal story.
May we vote, Mr. Chairman?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any more bacon stories? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Resolution passes. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service. Appreciate you. Members, a few minutes ago, we had no public comments before us, so that will take us to item L, election and confirmations. Commissioner Reed, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 1 on your iPad is elect notaries. Commissioners, you should have seen this, I believe, on your SharePoint earlier, but listings of notaries may be found on your iPad. Mr. Chairman, I move to confirm the election of these individuals as Rutherford County notaries.
Have a motion and a second. Commissioner P. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes. Sorry.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Motion passes.
Item 2, announce one vacancy for Board of Zoning Appeals. This is a 5-year term to expire October 2025. Item 3, announce 2 vacancies for the Beer Board and one alternate 3-year term to expire October 2023. Item 4, announce 3 vacancies for the Audit Committee, one from the School Board, one from the Road Board. One will be a Rutherford County citizen. These are 2-year terms to expire September 2022. Wish to announce one vacancy on the Codes Enforcement, Adjustments, and Appeals Board. This will be a 3-year term to expire September 2023. Wish to announce an appointment of Amber Brown and Lois Miller, citizens at large, to the Insurance Committee. This is a 4-year term to expire August 2024. Item 7, announce one vacancy for Zone 4, Road Commissioner. This covers the districts of 8, 9, and 10. Mr. Chairman, I wish to yield it over to our county attorney to explain the process for selecting this commissioner.
Commissioner Reed has yielded to the attorney. If you would, please give us an explanation.
Sure, yes, thank you. So this seat is a constitutional office, and because of that, state law requires that it be filled either by an election of the people, or if there is not sufficient time to get the name or the seat on the ballot for a general election, then appointment by this body in the interim until the next general election. Because of the timing of this resignation under state law, there is not sufficient time to get it on the November 2020 general election ballot. And so this commission is required to fill and appoint that seat in an interim capacity until the next general election, which I'll defer to our election commissioner, but I believe is 2022 in August, possibly. This body recently had to go through this process to fill the late Commissioner Irvin's seat, and it is somewhat similar. Although there is no specific requirement that this first go through the steering committee, there is a specific requirement that when we filled Commissioner Irvin's seat that it had to go through steering for applications and recommendation, because that is what is specifically provided in our local rules here for this county commission. If this county commission desires that it go through steering next month and have people apply that otherwise meet the residency requirements for the district and submit their names for consideration by the steering committee, and the steering committee give a recommendation to this body, that is your prerogative. And if you would like to do that, I would recommend doing a motion to that effect, but there is no requirement that that occur. Please understand that even if this body does decide to do that and it goes through steering and steering sends up a recommended name, that when this body does come to officially vote on to fill the office, that there can be other names that can be nominated at that meeting. And those names did not have to first go through the steering committee process. So there still is the option for committee members here to nominate other individuals.
Okay. Any discussion concerning that vacancy? Okay, we'll move on. Commissioner Reed.
Item 8 is to confirm the Ethics Committee, which is Ted Beatty, Craig Harris, Rhonda Allen, Robert P., and Joanna Medlin. This is to be reaffirmed every September. So, Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion and a second by Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Cook. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
20 yes. Motion passes.
Motion passes.
Item 9 also is a requirement to reaffirm every September. Confirm the 2020-21 Commission Chairman. Commission Chairman is Bill Kedron. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion and a second. Commissioner Cook. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
No.
Commissioner Stevens?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
18 yes. Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and thank you, members, for your support.
Item 10, confirm the 2021 Chairman Pro Tem, Jeff Phillips. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Motion, second. Commissioner Johnson on the second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Pass.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes, and I'll vote yes for Commissioner Phillips.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Motion passes.
Item 11, confirm Commission Chaplain Trey Gooch. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
And have a motion and a second. Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes?
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Amen.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Pass.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
19 yes, motion passes.
Item 12, I yield to the chairman for the election of the standing committees, and item 13, the standing committee officer elections.
Thank you, Commissioner. So tonight we have before us setting our standing committees for the year 2020 and year 2021. The standing committees are Budget and Finance. I believe these were passed at steering committee, I believe, the last steering committee. And what we will do is elect the officers. How we're going to do this is to, if you want to explain the process.
Sure. I think first, the commission should vote separately to elect
all the
standing committees, and instead of doing roll calls for each of them, which would take a long time, maybe collectively just as recommended by steering. And then once that occurs, I believe our new rules that were amended require the chairman pro tem to come up and kind of conduct the officer and vice chairman, the chairman and vice chairman elections for those standing committees.
So first, we're gonna vote collectively as the recommendation that came from steering of all the committees that are before you. So is there a motion to accept the standing committees as presented? Have a motion. Second by Commissioner Reed and others. Any discussion? Seeing none, if you would, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes?
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
So the motion passes and our standing committees are seated. Now at this point in time, we'll call on our Speaker Pro Tem to come forward to the well, and we will start with each committee. If you remember, members, we used to go into 205, and each committee, as I called their names, you would go over there, and then you would, that committee will select their chairman and vice chairman of that committee. But we're going to, because of COVID and our new rules, we'll do it here at the well. Speaker Pro Tem Phillips, if you would, if you want to start with our first committee.
Chairman and vice chairman as presented. The purchasing committee consists of Crowell, Virgil, Gammon, Trey, Joe, Jernigan, Alvin, McAdoo, Rod Key, and of course Mayor Pettus.
Come to the mic.
Do I need to do that again? Okay, thank you. First, we'll start with the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. Rhonda Allen, Phil Dodd, Paul Johnson, Steve Piercy, Robert Stevens, Trey Gooch, and Robert P. Those of you that are there, if you would join me here. Congratulations for your appointment to the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. The floor is now open for nominations for chairman.
I would like to nominate Chairman Robert P.
Robert P. has been nominated. Any other nominations?
Move to close to be appointed acclamation.
We have a motion for acclamation and a second. All those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll elect Robert P. by acclamation. All those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Robert, your committee.
We'll now open the floor for vice chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Commissioner Trey Gooch.
Are there any further nominations?
I move the nomination cease.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to elect Mr. Gooch, Commissioner Gooch, vice chairman by acclamation. Do we need to call roll on this?
All in favor.
All in favor signify.
Just to be sure, I would just call roll, and if there's no objection to how it was done the last time, you don't have to redo that one, but just do it from here on out.
Please call roll, please. For budget.
Full budget?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Stevens and
Stevens and Allen.
Oh, Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
7 yes.
Okay, we now have a vice chairman. The only thing else we need to do is set our time to meet, which is normally the first Thursday after the first Monday at 5:30. Is that okay with everybody? I see affirmatives all around. I'll say this, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we'll meet at 5:30, Mr. Chairman, on the first Thursday after the first Monday.
Thank you all. Congratulations.
Next, we have the Public Safety Committee. It's Jeff Phillips, Robert P., Commissioner Sherendo, Commissioner Gammon, Virgil Gammon, Michael Rather, Joe Gurley, and Pettus Reed. Thank you and congratulations for your service to the Public Safety Committee. As of now, the floor is open for nominations for chair.
Make a nomination for Commissioner Reed to remain chairman.
I have a motion and a second for Mr. Reed, Commissioner Reed. Any other nominations?
I move nomination C, so we elect Mr. Reed by acclamation.
We have a motion for and a second for acclamation. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. All right, now we're going to call the roll for chairman, and I'll go ahead and do that. Jeff Phillips is yes. Robert P.
Yes.
Commissioner Shereno.
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon.
Yes.
Commissioner Rather.
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley.
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
I'll accept.
Thank you, gentlemen. The floor is now open for vice chairman. Not everybody at once. Come on. Okay. Virgil Gammon has been nominated. Have a second over here.
I move we elect Mr. Gammon by acclamation.
Okay, we have a motion made to elect him by acclamation.
Second.
I have the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, call the roll, all of you.
Jeff Phillips? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
And Commissioner Reed.
Yes. And if you want to continue with the fourth Monday, 5:30. Okay. Very good.
Congratulations.
Next is Public Works and Planning. Commissioner P, Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Blair, Commissioner Sereno, Commissioner Piercy, and Commissioner Cush. Once again, congratulations on your appointment to Public Works and Planning. The floor is now open for nominations for chair.
I nominate Michael Cush. Second.
We have a motion and a second for Commissioner Cush. Any other nominations?
Move the nomination cease and Mr. Cush be elected by acclamation. Second.
We have a motion and a second by acclamation. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Now we're going to call the roll. Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
and Commissioner Cush.
Yes.
Your committee.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, let's open up the floor for nominations for vice chair. Chanto, the motion has been made for Commissioner Piercy to remain as vice chair. Any second? Second. We have a second. Any other nominations?
I move we elect Mr. Piercy by acclamation.
We have a motion for election by acclamation. We have a second. We have a second. Roll call, Mr. Chair. Pro Tem.
This will be for acclamation
Acclamation and for confirmation.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd, yes. Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair, yes. Commissioner Sereno, yes. Commissioner Piercy, Commissioner Cush.
Yes. And are we still okay for the first Tuesday after the Tuesday after the first Monday? So moved. All right. Continue on.
Congratulations.
Next, we have the Health and Ed Committee. Commissioner Carol Cook, Commissioner Blair, Commissioner Key, Commissioner Gammon, Commissioner Gurley, Commissioner Phillips, and Commissioner Allen. Once again, thank you for your service to the commission and also for your appointment to Health and Ed. The floor is now open for nominations for chair.
I nominate Commissioner Rhonda Allen to remain as chairman.
Second.
We have a motion for a nomination of Commissioner Allen to chair and a second. All those in favor,
I move that we cease.
we have an acclamation motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor of that acclamation, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, here we go, calling the roll. Commissioner Cook.
Yes.
Commissioner Blair.
Yes.
Commissioner Key.
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon.
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, yes. And Commissioner Allen.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Allen, the committee is now yours.
Commissioner Phillips, would you mind conducting the vice chairman for me since I'm not there?
I'll be happy to.
Thank you so much.
The floor is now open for nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Wayne Blair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for vice chair for Wayne Blair. Any other nominations?
Nomination cease. Vote of acclamation.
Second. We have a acclamation nomination for Commissioner Blair. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Now we're going to vote. Commissioner Cook.
Yes.
Commissioner Blair.
Yes.
Commissioner Key.
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon.
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, yes. And Commissioner Allen.
Yes, thank you.
Looks like the Health and Ed has been meeting on the fourth Tuesday at 5:30. Is that still good?
Yes.
If that's without objection, we'll keep it that same time and day.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we have the Property Management Committee.
Congratulations.
Commissioner Cook, Commissioner David Gammon, Commissioner Dodd, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Gooch, and Commissioner McAdoo. Once again, thank you for your service to property management. The floor is now open for nominations for chair.
I nominate Commissioner McAdoo for the chair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Commissioner Alan McAdoo for chair. Any other nominations? If not, we're going to call the roll. Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon, David Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo.
Yes.
Commissioner, the committee's yours.
Thank you, committee, for accepting me as chairman again this year. Last year, we worked awful hard, so you might as well get ready this year. It's going to be even harder.
Thank you.
Now, the floor is open for vice chairman.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Paul Johnson.
We have Paul Johnson. Do we have any other nominations?
Move the nomination cease.
We have a motion, move the nomination cease.
Second.
Second. Roll call.
This will be for
Vice chairman.
vice chair. Okay. Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner David Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
I guess.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Gooch,
I guess too.
Commissioner McAdoo.
Yes. And if no objection, we'll keep our meeting at the same time, fourth Thursday at 5:30.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Just to once again to announce the steering legislative and governmental committee: Mike Cush, Robert Stevens, Alan McAdoo, Michael Rather, Paul Johnson, Pettus Reed, and Commissioner Craig Harris is the chair, and Pettus Reed is the vice chair. Maybe.
Well, congratulations to all the standing committees. We got a lot of work ahead of us this next year, and I'm sure we will hit the ground running. This is a great growing county, and I know you'll accept your responsibilities on each one of the committees and work to your full potential. Next, I'd like to call, we'll move into item M on the agenda, a resolution to approve the consent agenda. Chairman Pro Tem Phillips, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor Catherine. I've reviewed the consent agenda. I find that all of the items are appropriate and move that the consent agenda be adopted and approved as presented.
I have a motion and a second. Serino and P. and Johnson, others. Any questions? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yeah. Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo,
Yes.
Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is item P. Reports by standing committees, Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee. Commissioner P., you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor.
First item is item P1A. This is actually a resolution that came forward from the road board to put a box culvert extension on Sledge Road for the Can Oak Schools complex. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the highway fund be amended as follows: a decrease in their assigned fund balance of $91,000 with an increased expenditure of $91,000 for bridge construction. Resolved this 17th day of September 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Cush, Commissioner Johnson. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Our next item is item P1B. This is a resolution from the Board of Commissioners from the Board of Education that monies that were not spent last year on capital projects automatically go back into that project's line item, and they are requesting that money back from that line item so that they can complete these projects. So therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the Education Capital Projects Fund be amended to complete projects remaining from the 2019-2020 fiscal year as follows: a decrease in committed for capital projects of $2,421,079 and an increase in capital projects for engineering services of $23,975, maintenance and repair of buildings of $2,282,274, and other contracted services $114,830. Resolved the 17th day of September 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion and a second by Commissioner Blair. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Yeah, our next item is P1C, and this is actually asking for money for the Solid Waste Fund to hold a Household Hazardous Waste Day, and this would be the funding up to the amount I mentioned. And I think that's November the 7th, or slated for November the 7th. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong there, but be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the Solid Waste Fund be amended as follows: for convenience centers, a decrease of an assigned fund balance of $50,000 and an increased expenditures connected with the private agency for $50,000. Resolved this 17th day of September 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move. And
Have a motion?
Excuse me, go ahead.
Second, Commissioner Blair. Any questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Our next item is actually to discuss items for fee for household hazardous waste day. And just to clarify a couple of things, this $50,000 that we just recommended be used or approved to be used is the max amount. The estimate is around $30,000 for that collection, and it is only for household hazardous waste for citizens of Rutherford County. We're not allowing people from other outside agencies or commercial entities to use this day. But anyway, the discussion came up, and we talked about this in budget the other day and decided that we pass it forward to the full commission with Chairman Cush's approval to discuss charging a fee for household hazardous day. And I'll turn it over to Chairman Cush if you'd like to, and also Commissioner Piercy had some ideas on that. I'll let one of the two, Chairman or Vice Chairman, pick this up.
I'm good. That's such an easy question. I'm going to let the Vice Chair Piercy.
This is coming to you tonight on account of I made the motion in budget to do this. We discussed this at our subcommittee meeting on trash. We discussed it at the Public Works Committee in our last meeting also in great lengths. There was some negativity brought up about how the money would be collected, whether it would be on a card, on cash, where, when, how. No motion was made from Public Works to bring this to this full commission. When it come to budget, our next budget meeting, it passed on a very narrow vote. I think it was 4-2. It was close because it did not come through Public Works. Well, I got the motion here anyway. My idea for this, of course, it's going to run probably somewhere close to $50,000, could be more or less for this hazardous waste collection. We don't have a clue what it's going to cost because we don't know how much we're going to collect. But the amount of fee we could charge at a gate for entrance to this facility, it's going to be at one place, one time. So that narrows your collection down. We kicked around $5, we kicked around $10 for a gate fee just to get in. And most of the people that's going to come and do the hazardous waste recollection will pay that without any question. You'll have some people gripe, because you'd have some people gripe if it was free and you helped them throw it all away. But neither here or there, the money we could collect through a gate fee would not come close to paying this $50,000. It will not do it. But it will break the ice on things to come in the very near future for your trash disposal, because we're going to have to pay. Now, that's the only reason I brought this to this commission, was an icebreaker. You know, some point in time, it was said the other night through budget, it may not be the right time to do this, but will it ever be the right time? But it's going to be time, and it's coming sooner than most people realize. And that's all I've got to say about it. And if you want to talk about it, that's great. And if you don't want to say nothing else, that's great. I'm good. Thank you.
Commissioner Gurley.
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments. I'm not in disagreement with the ice-breaking thing for a fee, but I think hazardous waste is probably the worst thing we could do. Hazardous waste, if improperly disposed of, can be very costly. I've worked more hazardous waste incidents than I want to think about. It's also something that's very easy. We don't want to discourage anyone from properly disposing of this hazardous waste. It's really easy. You know, the things we're talking about are mostly liquids for the most part. They're easily poured out on the ground. Then they're absorbed into the soil. Then they're absorbed into the groundwater. And then we get into a cleanup project. that costs thousands of dollars. And guess who foots the bill for that? The county. So really and truly, the idea of initiating a fee, but I think it needs to be something other than this to start with. So I'm totally opposed of doing this in terms of hazardous waste. We need to get everybody that will possibly get there to get rid of their hazardous waste in a proper manner for the environment's sake. Thank you.
Other comments? Commissioner Gammon's first.
I know that.
I'm going to ask you to stand. Sorry.
I just know I've hauled off a few TVs. We charge $10 a pound on that. I will say one thing when you brought up whether it's check or cash. I've always been somebody that doesn't want to deal with cash. I think that opens the door for some bad things on audits and stuff. Not saying you can't trust people, but business is business. Other side of the coin, though, I don't know that if we start, it's important, as Commissioner Gurley said, Commissioner Piercy, is that is an issue. We're a larger county. There's a lot of stuff being dumped. There's a lot of stuff going in the landfill right now. There's probably a ton of hazardous waste that we don't even know about. And that's where people sneak it in and all this kind of stuff. So it's almost like, unfortunately, we got to make it as easy as we can, I think, for somebody to bring it to a proper place. And then maybe we can decide what it's going to cost. But I'm not on the committee that knows all that information. I'm just saying, the harder you make it for somebody to dump, you're going to see it out here in the county and the valleys and back roads and everything else. And that brings up another issue of how much do you fine somebody if you catch them doing it. And we see that all the time with the workhouse coming in here with pictures of stuff being dumped. And it's many convenience centers as we got, you can't tell me it's not easy to take something where you need to take it. But I found no issue at all, $10 a pound, to get rid of, for instance, a TV and stuff, because you can't take it anywhere else. And that's the proper way to do it. Not everybody's going to follow that. But I just think, in my mind, the easier we make it for somebody and say, bring your hazardous waste here, we're going to get disposed of it. And it starts going over our head money-wise, that may be another matter, but I think we need to make it as easy as we can for people to contribute in that area.
Sure. Commissioner Phillips.
Maybe this can't work, but to break the ice, couldn't we not charge anybody but ask for a donation? Couldn't we put up a sign and say $10 if you'd like to make a donation for us to dispose of the hazardous waste, $10, and see how it goes?
Other comments? Commissioner Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I voted no on budget with this. Had two concerns. One, kind of piggyback on Commissioner Gammon, is that this is an important day for hazardous waste, and if you do have a fee or charge it, it could and would probably cut down on the participation. My second concern was the accounting part of it, and Ms. Nolan, do you have any comments on that as far as how would we account for who would collect the money and what forms of payment and who will be responsible, so forth and so on?
So if you are going to charge everybody at the gate, I would do it low budget and do it. Those of y'all that have gone to football games and everything at our local schools, it'll be you could do a ticket accounting where you've got somebody who is selling, collecting, give them a ticket, then the ticket is picked up by somebody else, separate those duties, and then have a reconciliation of the ticket sales to cash. I mean, that would cover us on an internal control process. If you're doing donations, I would have two people there collecting. So, I hate the donation thing too, because you can't. There's no control over how do you know how much you got.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Phillips.
If you're going to charge me, I might feel terrible about it. But if you're going to ask for a donation, I might give twice as much as you're not asking me to do so. So we could probably collect more money by asking for a contribution than we could by collecting a fee.
Commissioner Piercy.
said I was done, but I'm not. For the people that are worried about going to pour it out on the road because we charged them a fee, if they're going to pour it on the road, they're not coming anyway. They done poured it out in their driveway, their backyard, or whatever. They're not coming to the convenience center with it. As far as collecting the money, it's an issue. I done this to see what kind of response we will get on the commission floor, because we've got a whole lot bigger decisions to make on our trash than just this hazardous waste thing. From this point, I'd like to make the motion that we go ahead and conduct this hazardous waste fee-free. Let the public bring it and not charge them anything. But keep in mind, the day's coming, we can't do that. And that's my motion, is to make it a fee-free hazardous waste collection.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Gammon. Discussion. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Lisa. This is Rhonda Allen.
Commissioner Allen, you're recognized.
Thank you. Lisa, is there any way, I do like Jeff's idea about the donation, just that might give us some ability to gauge people's willingness to pay, which I think is exactly what Commissioner Piercy is trying to gauge. Is there any way for us to have an electronic only way to accept donations? Because especially now in the day of COVID, people are reluctant to exchange money and have money change hands. Yeah, I know when I've been somewhere and used my card, if someone else has to touch my card, I've seen them, just, even wipe it down before they hand it back to me or something like that. Is there any way for us to consider doing electronic only and offering the opportunity for donations?
So we would have to work with the trustee's office. They set up all the offices that take credit cards. We would have to have a kiosk or something. Commissioner Allen, I mean, it would be something that we could look into between now and November, to have electricity out there, to have, maybe a county phone. Somebody smarter than me on figuring out how to collect monies that would go to the trustee. I mean, he's in charge of that piece of it. So we would have to work through him and see if there's an opportunity there. And maybe maybe we can hand out, or not hand out flyers, but have a note or a sign that says, if you'd like to donate, please go to WW Trustee and have a site there. But we certainly can, I'll get with him and see if there's opportunities for that.
I don't think we have to do it necessarily in time for this particular donation round. But I mean, it is something worth thinking about if you're concerned about the controls and trying to make sure that, all the money is accounted for electronically, in my mind, would be the cleanest way to do that. If we can work out the mechanics of making that happen. And yeah, I don't think there's anything magic about making it happen this time, but it is something that needs to be on our radar going forward to consider.
Yes, and not only that, but if ever there is collections in the centers, if that is an opportunity at some point in the future, I would not want cash in those centers. They're too remote, and I just would not feel comfortable for our employees to have to deal with cash.
Mayor, I call the question.
Commissioner Gammon.
I call the question.
Question's been called. All those in favor of the question being called signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries. Non-debatable. Question been called. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
20 yes.
Chairman P., I'd like to ask our attorney a question. Don't take.
Commissioner Piercy.
Can the call for the question be overrode at any point in time? Not this time, but can that be done?
It's non-debatable.
Your question is, when somebody moves to call the question and that passes,
yes,
can that be reconsidered?
Yes.
Can you give me a minute?
Sure.
No, it's my understanding that the motion that passed, it would have to, someone from the side that was in the affirmative.
Y'all are making me work.
Would have to bring a new motion back to override the, I believe I'm correct in that, that would override.
The reason I asked it, and it wasn't on this vote that we've just had, but in the future we're going to have votes that we're going to have to make. It's going to take several, probably hours of discussion to come up with what's going to be best for this county and our trash issues. And the question doesn't need to be called at any time when we're trying to make this decision.
Right.
Because our 7-member committee has put in a lot of hours on this, and we're going to have to ask for a lot of input from this full commission on it. And that's why I asked about the question call.
Commissioner Piercy, under Robert's rules, one of the most abused motions is for someone just to call out question being called. Now, if the chairman recognizes that person, then they can make the motion, as I did in this case. I recognized him, then he made the motion. But if I don't recognize the person as chairman and they just yell out because they want to end debate and they're not recognized, then the debate continues. But if I recognize them, as I did with Commissioner Gammon, he made the motion and it's non-debatable at that point. And we have to go through that. Now, somebody from the winning side could bring it back, another motion on top of the one that just passed, to bring back the same question. I believe I'm correct on that, Mr. Christensen.
Yeah, we're getting really hyper-technical here, and I don't want to commit myself to something that later might not be accurate. I will say, though, there's a distinction between a motion to reconsider and a motion to rescind. There is a subtle distinction there. A motion to reconsider can be brought up within the same meeting. Okay, so before we leave here today, for example, if a commission member wanted to bring a motion to reconsider, it would have to be done prior to the adjournment of this meeting, but it can only be brought by somebody that was on the prevailing side of the motion.
And it has to pass by a 2/3 majority. That's right here.
Yes. Now, a motion to rescind, that's something totally different, and you could bring that at a different meeting, and you didn't have to be on the prevailing side, but there have to be certain other requirements made that I have to look into now. I think we're just talking about your particular question here. I hope I answered it at least somewhat sufficiently.
Sure, thank you. So the way I understand it, the mayor has the power to not recognize a call for the question from the commission.
That is correct. Yes, sir. Okay. And that's why I continue to say you're recognized throughout the whole meeting because of those circumstances. If somebody just yells out to stop debate because they're getting tired and they want to go home, and if I don't recognize that person, then we continue debate. But once I do recognize that person and they say, I move to call for the question, then that becomes non-debatable at that point, and then you have to go through that. And then it goes back to somebody on the prevailing side could stand up, as it says right here, to reconsider that motion. It would take 2/3, a majority, to reconsider that same motion of the previous action on the same day, as our attorney told us. Commissioner Gammon.
Just elaborate a little bit. I love the idea Commissioner Phillips had, but we're not ready to get into that because Ms. Nolan has got a lot of work to do, but we need to go ahead and start doing something. That's my issue, is let's give people a place to go, and in the future, we can come back and visit this.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
This is a good start. Other comments? Commissioner Piercy, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Chairman, you're recognized.
All right, our next item is P1E, which is actually a solid waste consultant agreement. And I'll go ahead and read that. Behind this, you'll notice, and I guess it's on our iPads too, there is a contract that was brought up while we were in budget the other night. Whereas Rutherford County desires to enter into an agreement with Caldwell Environmental Solutions, LLC, in substantially the form attached hereto as Exhibit A, to provide services related to residential solid waste as contained therein. And whereas the agreement is in the amount of $50,000 to be paid monthly over a term of 6 months as provided for in Exhibit A. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the county mayor and all other appropriate officials of Rutherford County, Tennessee, be and are hereby authorized to execute an agreement with Caldwell Environmental Solutions, LLC, a copy of the same being attached hereto as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference as if set forth herein at length verbatim, to provide services related to residential solid waste as contained therein in the amount of $50,000 to be paid monthly over a term of 6 months as provided for in Exhibit A. Resolved this 17th day of September 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion and second. Commissioner Piercy. Open for discussion. Questions? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Okay, our next item is item P1F, which is actually some funding for what I call the old judicial building. Whereas funding for the 20 North building renovation was previously approved in October of 2019 in the amount of $4,200,000. And whereas the change order for 1 through 7 in the amount of $259,305.99 has been approved. And whereas the furniture bid was $60,000 more than the allowance. And whereas additional funding in the amount of $316,306 is needed for these items from a future bond issue. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that additional funding for change orders 1 through 7 and the furniture and fixtures for the renovation of 20 North building in the amount of $316,306 be authorized from a future bond issue. Resolved the 17th day of September 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Motion, Commissioner Johnson on the second. Discussion. Chairman, let me show you this. This was a misprint. It says 319,000, 316,000. 319.
I will read that amount for clarification, whereas the additional funding is in the amount of $319,306. Excuse me. But there is a misprint on our paper here. I'll let that be reflected in my motion to approve.
Have a motion on moving it from the 16 to the 19,000, 319,000. Commissioner Johnson, you good on the second? Discussion. That was a misprint. Good catch. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
20 yes, motion passes.
Okay, our last item coming up is item P1G, and this is actually funding for the one-stop building. We've discussed this many times, but we haven't actually passed anything. This did come forward from budget the other day so that we can get that on these fall funding. Item P1G. Whereas there is a need to plan, design, and construct additional office space for the county clerk. Whereas property located at the northwest corner of Blaze Drive and Fortress Boulevard was leased from the city of Murfreesboro in 2019. And whereas the building is estimated to total 14,000 square feet, of which the county clerk will use approximately 4,000 square feet. And whereas the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security has an interest in 4,500 square feet, with 5,500 being shelled for future use. Whereas the estimated cost of funding the architectural and engineering fees, construction, and furniture and fixtures is $5,300,000. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that funding for the architectural, engineering fees, construction, and furniture and fixtures for a building at the northwest corner of Blaze Drive and Fortress Boulevard in an estimated amount of $5,300,000 be authorized from a future bond issue. Resolved this 17th day of September 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Johnson on the second. Any discussion? Commissioner Cush.
So,
if you'd stand, please. Sorry.
So Commissioner P, let me ask you, the land belongs to the city of Murfreesboro, right?
That is correct.
So we're leasing the land.
For $1.
We're going to build the building and then lease space out to Department of Homeland Security and then probably to the county clerk. We're going to be a landlord, I guess is the question.
I'm sorry?
We're going to be the landlord?
That is correct. If I might just take a moment, we had been working on this one-stop proposal for the last 2 years. We submitted a proposal to the Department of Safety because they were actually wanting 10,000 square feet, which would have been a new location from where they're located on Middle Tennessee Boulevard now, where you go get your driver's test for young drivers and get new driver's license. And the THP is also located there. We had to submit a bid for turnkey to build them. We would build a suite at this location on the corner of Fortress and Blaze. Unfortunately, we were not awarded that bid. It stayed with Mr. Pettus, who currently is the landlord on their location in Middle Tennessee Boulevard. The good news is that the Department of Safety, they're in the legislature of spring, this past spring, they put money into the budget so it doesn't have to be bid. They can contract with 6 different cities. So the money's already there, and Rutherford County was selected of one of those 6 cities to receive a new express center. So it won't really compete with the standing facility today on Middle Tennessee Boulevard. This is going to be smaller space. Instead of 10,000, they only want 4,500 square feet. And it's going to be more electronic, if you will, kind of like a Verizon or an AT&T facility, with a lot more kiosk, and mainly designed for express renewals of driver's license. So our citizens will be able to go in, touch the touch screen, get their driver's license, print it out right there and be gone, instead of having to wait in line with everybody else wanting to take their driver's license, apply for a new driver's license itself. So we got a visit from Stream, I believe, which is Department of General Services now, in the state of Tennessee, and they came down with the Department of Safety representative as well. And so the commissioners already signed off on it. It now goes October 1 to the State Building Commission, and they will sign off on it as well, and we'll be on our way.
Mike, did that answer everything? We looked at this in budget, and we decided to go ahead with the full original amount that we looked at. Of course, originally was to get office space for our county office, and then we had the opportunity to actually expand that, because what came out of budget is we're growing, and we're growing quickly, and this will actually give us a little more space to fall back on if it's needed. And Commissioner Dodd, you had a question.
Commissioner Dodd.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Chairman. Mike, I had some concerns as well. We're building 5,500 unfinished space, cold hard space, speculatively to build in the future. We may use it. We can't lease to the private world, but we can lease to other government or institutions. But also I'm uncomfortable because we're competing with private enterprises who are building speculative space. So I'm asking you, was that your discomfort?
Yes, that was exactly my discomfort. I didn't feel that the county needed to be a landlord and rent space at probably a lower level than we could rent to the commercial industry. And why would we be competing against a commercial entities that live in our county, that do business with us, pay business taxes, hire folks, pay property taxes? It just seems like we are going against our constituents who are in that kind of business. It didn't make sense to me. Still doesn't make sense to me.
Commissioner Dodd.
Thank you for letting me ask a direct question. So again, that's my discomfort. So what we're doing here, we're going to occupy 4,000 feet. We've got a tentative agreement with the state to occupy 4,500 square feet. I'm pretty comfortable with leasing to the state. That just kind of helps. We're paying our note. That seems like a good, prudent decision. But I'm not comfortable with, we wanted to do 14,000 feet. We only need 9,500. Let's just build 5,500 more feet. I'm still uncomfortable with that. We've had a lot of debates and a lot of good feedback from committees, but I'm just sharing with you, that's been my discomfort. Are we doing 5,500 square feet that we may need? It may fit our needs in the future. I'm just uncomfortable.
Chairman McAdoo.
I understand where you're coming from, but just in the last couple of days on this 5,500 square feet, the county would definitely be using it. That's only in the last couple of days. We worked on this project for the last couple of years, so therefore we have had growth, especially from the clerk's office. She will be coming back asking for more space. Then we have another county entity that is looking at moving out there. So we're not building 5,500 square feet to compete with the developers or whatnot in this area. We need the space. And like I said, the last couple of days, that space has been eaten up. And will be brought back before the next meeting, committee meeting.
So your recommendation, Chairman, is this will be brought up at your next Property Management Committee to discuss what will fill the additional space if we go with the full 10,000 on top of the 4,000. Commissioner Dodd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If we vote yes tonight, will PBA give this a thorough professional look with the architect's plans and consider how to build it? So
yes,
this
sir.
isn't the final
no
on how the money will be spent?
Matter of fact, Chairman Vaught with the PBA was the one that actually kind of started the conversation. Having been a former county commissioner, he said, you know, since the infrastructure is already going to be there, the parking, the sewer, the water, everything else, landscaping is going to be there. He said, we might want to take a look at that. And I'm sure that they will. As far as the bonding, Ms. Nolan, comments?
And that's what I had asked the mayor. This particular part of the resolution at the very last paragraph is what's important to me, that there is authority from this body to borrow the money. We'll be going to the market September 29th, I believe, and so I had no the mayor has no authority to borrow that amount of money without y'all voting on this. From my perspective, to me, you're allocating $5.3 million of the next bond issue for this project. We sit today not knowing for sure what that project looks like, and I think that's what's going to be developed through property management PBA when you work those agreements with PBA, what it is that you want them to move forward with building your architectural and engineering designs. So for me, the most important part is you're allocating $5.3 million for this project.
And I gave instruction to the PBA that they're going to start interviewing architects very quickly, so we can go through this process. And I think we'll see some pretty good numbers come in right now because interest rates are low. There are a lot of contractors that would love to do a job like this and be proud of that. Commissioner Dodd?
Thank you. That raises my comfort level to know that we can look at the space, look at the needs. If we have another client from the county, they may need 6,000 feet, and I'll approve more building. They may need less. So knowing that we can program the space more properly.
Sure. Commissioner Cush.
One last comment, because I'm going to have to hear it 2 or 3 times before it becomes a truth. You're telling me, I think you're telling me, that this extra space, 5,000 feet plus or minus, is earmarked only for future government space.
Yeah, that space cannot be leased based on the regulations of our bond.
We're selling this tax exempt. We can't sell tax exempt and then use it for private business. It creates a huge problem.
So we are definitely not competing against our developer market and dropping rates at a lower square foot.
No.
Okay.
That's all I need to do. Drop the mic.
Any other questions?
No. Mr. Chairman, this is Robert Stevens. I have a couple of questions.
Sure. Commissioner?
First off, how long is our lease with the state for that portion that they're going to use?
The state of Tennessee traditionally does 10 years at a time.
And how long a period of time will we be paying off these bonds?
typically 20 years.
So if they decide to leave after the 10 years, then we're stuck with the note from years 11 through 20.
Yeah, but the way I calculated on the price that I shot them at $18 a square feet or square foot, I think it would amortize itself out and be paid for within 6 years.
Okay. And how long is our lease with Murfreesboro to use the space for the $1 a year?
There is not an official lease yet with the city of Murfreesboro. There is if memory serves, there's a memorandum of understanding that was done about a year ago that was contingent on some things. I don't have that in front of me, and I have not reviewed that recently. But there would have to be some lease. Mayor, do you
$1 for 50 years.
So we don't think that's going to change then?
No, it's $1 per year for 50 years, so $50.
And then what other office, I'm kind of curious as to what other offices are interested in moving out there before we vote to build this shell. I'd like to kind of know what's coming up, if that's something that's promising or if it's illusory at this point. Can somebody explain what other county offices might be interested in using that space?
Commissioner McAdoo.
I'd rather not bring it up now because I'd like for it to go before the committee, because this was just a discussion of the additional space. But number one, I was over at the county clerk's office, and the county clerk did give me a tour and stated that they will need additional space. And the additional space would be for handling all the auto dealers in the county. I think backed up with paperwork and so on and so forth. Can't get another employee in there because she don't have the space to put them to do the backlog she got now. So she will be asking for additional space at our next committee meeting. That's the main thing that we were looking at.
So we're building a building for the county clerk, and she's going to come back and ask for more space?
That's correct. We're looking at giving additional space based on her need. Like I stated before, we've been looking at this project for 2 years. So in the 2-year span, with the figures that were given 2 years ago, it has increased. The need has increased, but the need is out there. So
Chairman, I think this body was looking long before I got here. I think in the last administration they were looking, and you were looking, and under Mayor Burgess. So
that's where it originally started from. But
yes, sir.
Getting as far as we did, it was 2 years ago that we were able to come up with the site.
Yes, sir.
The Blackman site, and move forward. The thing we're looking at, like I said, it's going to be adjustments made. PBA board is looking at that. The committee just take the information that's brought to them, that what they need, and it's passed on to the PBA board to do the actual work.
Well, I'm still somewhat confused. So if we're planning for 4,000 square feet for the clerk and she needs more space, why are we not increasing the space that she needs now before we build this facility? Because that affects how much we have left to lease to other people. If she needs 2,000 more square feet, it may be harder for us to find somebody that needs 3,000 square feet than somebody that needs 5,000 square feet.
Well, basically speaking, space allocation was brought up prior to the committee meeting, and we're trying to get to the bond market to borrow this money. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's two separate things that are going on here. Is that the need for the additional space was brought up prior to the committee meeting that is scheduled for the 24th. And the additional space that we have allocated to build this building originally was a 10,000 square feet based on if the state take this amount. The state decided not to take this amount and take the 4,500 square feet. So therefore, we had 5,500 square feet that we had been planning on building anyway. So based on this, we looked at the ones that needed additional space and stated that we need to go ahead and build this building, and then we'll let them use the additional space. But we couldn't bring it up until the next committee meeting.
Well, I agree 100% that the clerk needs more office space. I'm in and out of there frequently myself and see the lines and the congestion in there. So I agree that she needs the space. I'm just concerned now that we don't have a plan and we're 9 days from going to the bond market for $5 million, and it's like, just build it and we're going to figure it out later. And I'm not very comfortable with that myself. I would kind of like to know what our plan is before we build this extra space, whether we need it or need all of it or not. What is the price difference between the square footage just for the clerk and the Department of Safety versus the full building?
I don't have that number.
I mean, the only number that I had was the 5.3 million. And Commissioner Stevens, I guess from my perspective, is that the funds would be spent within the next 2 years.
Could we do like a capital outlay note to get this going and figure out our plan first before we borrow the money from the bond market?
I mean, certainly you could do that, but there is economies of scale. We're already going to the market. If you think that you're going to do this project within the next 2 years, you know, I sit here and think, is 5.3 is the amount that you're going to apply to this project. We write the resolutions broad enough to where if by chance there is money left, it could go to another county project. The other part of it is 5.3 going to be enough? You know, either, you know, you got risk either way, but, you know, we're already going, and you know that you're going to do a project. I guess from my perspective, you're going to be, I'm assuming that we're going to do this project or some other project that the money can be applied to within the next 2 years.
Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
The bottom line is, Commissioner Stevens, now is the time to go ahead and bite the bullet, because this building as it stands now is going to be more beneficial to the citizens of this county due to the fact that it was set aside originally for the Highway Patrol officer's office out there. Okay, that fell through. But this express station, that's going to be more beneficial to the citizens of the county, because the easy access that they can take care of their driver's license while they're taking care of their license plates and everything else. Okay, now the prudent thing to do is this other 5,500 square feet that seems to be the elephant in the room. Now's the time to go ahead and rough it in for future use, with the possibility that the Department of Safety and Homeland Security, they're always needing additional space. So, and construction costs are going to be going up. There's no question about that. So now's the time to bite the bullet at going to the bond market and go ahead and get it at the rate we are now. You know, it's not going to cost anything sitting there, but it'll just be roughed in, and they can address the needs that the Department of Homeland Security or any other governmental agency can rent that from the county for. So I'm in full support of this, going ahead with the
the progress, the program like it is now, and go ahead and take care of it.
Commissioner Cook, you're recognized.
I thought I'd be quiet. But out at the Lang Ag, we built a building for them out there. You know, the government, federal government's got a building.
Yes, ma'am.
And it has paid for itself. And at the time we borrowed the money on that, the money was much higher for the interest rate. And it's better to get it now than to wait.
Yes, ma'am. Other comments? Commissioner P. Chairman?
The only thing that came to mind as I looked at this and was thinking about future needs for the county is I would suggest to the PBA that the shelled part of the building that's not finished be adjacent to the county's building. Basically don't have county, state open. Basically the county, the shelled open space, and then the parts at least to the state separate. That way we can expand into it easier out of our office space if it's needed. And it sounds like from what Chairman McAdoo is saying that might be the case. But I would suggest we bring that up, or y'all bring that up in your meetings.
Other
Mr.
comments?
Chairman, I have a question. This is Commissioner Allen.
Commissioner Allen?
Actually, I guess I have a question and a statement. When we were discussing this at budget the other night, really in my mind, building out that shell space was no different than what we did for the new judicial building when we built out that 4th floor. We knew we were going to need to eventually grow into additional space. And so I guess in my mind, that's kind of what we were planning for here as well. I've never known us yet in all my time on the commission to build something and say, oh, gee, we built it too big. But, you know, that just hasn't happened yet. So that's my statement. My question is, at the end, let's say in 50 years, Murfreesboro does not want to renew the lease. We've invested in an asset on that property. Is there any language in the agreement where if they terminate that lease, that we in some way get compensated for leaving that asset on their property? Or is that just kind of a wash? How does that work? And maybe Nick can speak to that.
I have not looked at the agreement in some time, but generally for a ground lease situation like this, you're paying over the course of those 50 years kind of in an implied fashion, so that once those 50 years are up, you're kind of absolved of the building. They would get the building. Now, if there's some sort of negotiation that this commission through the mayor wants me to try and make with the city on those terms to present back to this commission, that can be done. Remember, there's only a memorandum of understanding that's not binding on the parties yet, and so there would need to be an actual lease agreement. In conjunction with that, you're going to have an agreement presented before you between the county and the PBA that we typically have for the other projects that we've done. So if that's something the commission would like me to look into with the mayor, we can do that.
Well, and basically we are getting the land for free. So that was when I said a wash, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yes,
so,
you're correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes, I think, I know we've talked in Health and Ed about the need for a health department for additional space. So I think the use of the space is going to come. As far as the 50 years, well, I'm not going to worry about it. I doubt if Commissioner Allen will either, even though she's much younger than me. But you know, I think if there's still a DMV or driver's license placed there, then the whole political aspect of that, of canning that, would be a fiasco. And the other thing is, most buildings built today of that type are probably not going to be suitable. They're going to require major renovation or whatever 50 years down the road. That's just kind of the way it is. And so I think we'll find a use for that space. That area is growing so much that be it for the additional for the clerk, for health department, et cetera, I don't think we're going to have a lack of use for that space.
Commissioner McAdoo.
think we all, Commissioner Dodd, did you, I think you voted with us. I think everyone voted in favor of it. I believe it was unanimous. And that's from memory.
Other questions? Commissioner Cush.
Here's my last gripe. Would this be a good deal if we had to buy the land at market price? Somebody nod their head. Yes, it would be. So if we had to buy the land, if this dollar deal, which sounds like it doesn't even really exist at this point, if we had to buy this land at the open market, this is still a good deal.
Oh.
Kush, we looked at buying property in that area on the market, and they wouldn't even price it to us per se unless we bought it by the square inch. Am I right?
Yeah, I think some of it going out to Old Fort Parkway was, or 96 was by the square inch. It was so expensive. So anything was $2 million or more. We looked at leasing the old CVS or the old Rite Aid that now Walgreens owns. We had Mr. Spurlock actually stepped up and said, I know you're looking for property. We've got some at Blackman Elementary, and we really looked hard at that, but we looked at the stacking of the cars, pick up and drop off in the morning, and we thought it would be probably problematic. We looked over at Lane Niagara of property over there, and you thought that shot the Pope. We just didn't want to come out there. So
I'm gonna cut you off.
Yes.
Here's what I've heard. We may have a deal for $1, but nobody's got any paperwork. There's no contract.
No, sir. We do have an MOU signed by the city council, signed by the mayor, signed by me.
Been approved by the.
On that, you said it was a year old.
Yes, but there's not a time limit. I don't have it in front of me. There's not a time limitation on it to my knowledge. It's a memorandum of understanding that the parties will work in good faith on this project to lease the deal.
They cannot rescind.
I need to look at it.
Okay. We don't know. We don't know what we have. The city finances are not near as good a shape as they are. No, let me rephrase that. The city finances aren't as good now as they were a year ago when that letter was probably written. So does that really dollar for 50 years really exist? We're getting ready to go to the bond market and borrow $5.5 million, and we don't even know if we have land. It makes zero sense to me.
Commissioner McAdoo.
As you recall, we did some dealing with the Murfreesboro City for a piece of property that was owned by the county. Everybody know about that. It was on the corner of Old Nashville Highway. We let them have that property in good faith with a lease deal, banking on that we could go in the Blackman area where they building this new fire station with our project. And it was agreed on and passed by the city council. Now, where's the official document or whatever? My committee do not handle the official documents. That comes through our attorney. But to say we don't have the property, you're telling me that I'm gonna get my property back at the corner of Old Nashville Highway. Am I right, Mr. Mayor?
That's correct. We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll. Read the motion, Madam Clerk.
Yes, it's simply to approve the resolution that Commissioner P. has read prior to the discussions. Do you want me to read it over?
Carol, do you want the whole motion read again?
All right. Call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
I know we need this space. This just doesn't pass the smell test for me. So no.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
No.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
We have 18 yes, motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Chairman. Next, members, we have item number 2, Health and Education Committee, no report. Property Management Committee, no report. Is that correct, Commissioner McAdoo? Public Safety Committee, no report. Public Works, no report. Steering Legislative and Governmental Committee. Establishment of an ad hoc committee concerning guns and employees consisting of the Sheriff, Risk Management Director, Human Resource Director, Chairman of Steering, and Chairman of Public Safety Committee. Commissioner Reed, you're recognized.
Commissioners, I wish to read before you a resolution that's coming from Steering, and at this time I'll read that. Whereas the Steering Committee has recommended that a temporary select committee be established to explore and study and research whether it is in the best interest of the citizens of Rutherford County for county employees to be permitted to carry a handgun on their person if properly licensed, approved, and concealed while at work. Now therefore be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners to establish a temporary select committee of individuals to explore, study, and research whether it is in the best interest of the citizens of Rutherford County for county employees to be permitted to carry a handgun on their person if properly licensed, approved, and concealed while at work. Be it further resolved, the temporary select committee desires and requests that the Rutherford County Sheriff be on said temporary select committee, and further that the rest of the committee be comprised of the Risk Management Director, Human Resource Director, Chairman of the Steering Committee, and the Chairman of the Public Safety Committee. Be it finally resolved, the temporary select committee shall report its findings and recommendations to the steering committee at the conclusion of said study. Resolved this 17th day of September 2020. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Gurley. You second?
Yes, I second.
And you're recognized.
Yes, I would like to offer an amendment to this resolution. He did not ask to be added to it, but I've talked to him and he said he would be willing to serve. I would like to make a motion to add the Public Safety Director to this ad hoc committee.
Public Safety Director would like to be, that's your amendment, your motion on the amendment to the motion. Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Phillips. Discussion on the amendment. Commissioner Gurley.
Yeah, my reason for doing so, he brings a lot of experience in this area, and having both worked in quite a few different capacities, and I think it would be good to be add him as a member of this committee.
We were getting that correct. You seconded the first motion. Now you made the amendment to the main motion, and it was seconded by Commissioner Phillips. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, that Chris Clark be added to this ad hoc committee. Madam Clerk, please call the roll on the amendment to the motion.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes?
Commissioner Gurley? Commissioner Blair? Commissioner Allen?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo?
Yes.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
20 yes.
20 yeses. The amendment to the motion passes. Members, we're back on the main motion as amended. Any further discussion?
Question.
Commissioner Piercy, you recognize?
For all county employees? Everybody?
That is yet to be determined. That's why the ad hoc committee is put together to have that discussion. Am I correct, Chairman Reed?
Yeah, that's it. And I think Commissioner Rather is the one that brought this to the steering's attention. And as we got into it, I think I may have been the one to use the term that this has a whole lot of tentacles to it. And who we recognize, who is the ones that use this, or where we go from there. And that was the idea of bringing in the ad hoc committee and see just how far and what we do and what it does, where we are, and recognize this. Currently, the way it is with county employees, we use the state law that's involved in this, and what that law is that if they are in this building or wherever they are, that they are still allowed to have a firearm within their automobile or vehicle, but they can't bring it within inside the building of that type. But I think that was it. And Commissioner Rather might want to say something as far as the intention is there.
Commissioner Rather?
Well, Commissioner Pierce, I don't know where you're going with that, but I've had some other questions about this. If an employee, this does apply to all employees of Rutherford County. However, it does or it doesn't? It does. It does. However, state law, these are just handguns, people who have a handgun carry permit, and they cannot, according to the state, carry them into certain buildings, such as schools. So no, a school teacher would not be allowed to carry a gun into the school because we can't circumvent or override state law. They can't carry it where judicial proceedings are taking place. They can't take it into a juvenile detention or the sheriff's office, but they can bring it, they can take it to work with them, and they work at the codes office, or they work in planning or the clerk's office. But state law does restrict certain facilities. You cannot carry a weapon in there unless, I mean, law enforcement can, unless it's part of your everyday duties, you can't do it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner, you recognized? Commissioner Harris?
This first of all, I would like to say thank you to all y'all who send me cards and prayers and calls. To the dismay of some, I'm alive and kicking. So
good for you.
I just want to let y'all know that that this was brought up in our committee. I think it's been going on 2 or 3 committee meetings, and I asked the steering committee to form an ad hoc committee because this is a very emotional issue. It's also a very complex issue, and I wanted to keep the number low because I didn't want to have a whole lot of so-called Indians, trying to, just too many people. So that's where we came up with the number. We need to explore this and study it. And also, we're dealing also with a liability issue, and that's one of the reasons I asked for the risk management director be involved in this, so that we know everything that we're going to be dealing with as far as liability and as far as what's in the best interest for our citizens. So that's the reason I brought this to the steering committee, and I feel that we can do this in 2 months and bring a recommendation to this commission and to end this matter once and for all. So that's one of the reasons that I came up with this ad hoc committee. So that's what I wanted to let all y'all know about that. Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Robert Stevens. I had a couple of questions and comments.
Sure. You recognize Commissioner Stevens.
First off, this would not apply to any of the constitutional officers unless they had decided to make their own policy. And as I understand, the Register of Deeds already has a policy. This only is going to apply to ones that are under the mayor and county general. It would not affect the trustee's office or the county clerk. They're able to make their own policies now, regardless of what the county commission says. I have a question, and I assumed that this was going to be a non-paid committee. And if that's the case, I just wanted to make that clear and make sure that there wasn't any intent on the part of the steering committee to make this a paid committee.
Is that just a comment or a question?
Well, that was my assumption, since we didn't include any kind of provision in there for pay, but I wanted to be sure that this wasn't something that we're expecting to pay. And if that's the case, it needs to be in the motion that this is going to be a paid committee.
Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Harris, Commissioner Rather.
Yes. To my understanding, Commissioner Stevens, this was to be a paid committee. It's supposed to be the normal committee fees of $150 per meeting.
Well, if that's the case, then the motion needs to be amended then to have a budget amendment with it, and we need to know how much money is going to be allocated. I was under the impression it was going to be a non-paid committee, that it was going to get its work done in a couple of months and report back some findings to us. So that's why there was no mention of payment in the motion that I made to set up this committee. But if that's something the commission wants to do, then that needs to be addressed now before the committee starts meeting, because if that's the case, then we have to have a budget amendment and have the funds available to pay the members.
Yeah. Commissioner Stevens is correct. There would have to be a budget amendment made. So maybe being unpaid. Commissioner McAdoo?
Well, looking at the ones you putting on the committee, I don't understand why we would be paying. This would be a paid committee. You got the sheriff, the director, human resource director, chairman of steering committee, and chairman of public safety, and the public safety director. Now, they could meet during office hours as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't have to be after hours. So why would I pay my directors to meet on a policy that can be performed during their time they're here at work?
Yeah. So the only one on here that I see would be the chairman of the steering committee. So it would be everybody else is already on payroll, right?
And the chairman of public safety.
And chairman of public safety. Sorry.
Do not request to be paid if I don't have to.
Okay. Commissioner Harris, you request not to be paid?
I have no problem with it. I think we're making a bigger issue than what it needs to be.
Well,
Absolutely. I'll be glad to make a motion to where we do not have to pay anything towards this committee. And if that's okay with Commissioner Stevens, I have absolutely no problem with it.
It is. All right, Commissioner Johnson.
Okay, Commissioner Cook, the ad hoc committee that you and Phil Dodd and I served on, we weren't paid for it, so why is this committee going to be paid? I mean, that's just a moot point. I mean.
So, do you want to make a second amendment to serve without pay?
You can't do that. You can't do a third amendment. You can't do that. Can I clarify? Is that okay?
Got a legal clarification.
Just briefly, if without objection, everybody understands that the positions on the temporary select commission are unpaid, the motion and resolution doesn't have to be paid, and the minutes will reflect, as the record and the clerk keeps, that it's going to be unpaid for commissioners that are sitting on the spot. And if there's no objection to that, Mayor, you might want to just make sure there's no objection, and you can just move forward with what's currently on the table.
All right, without objection, we're back on the main motion. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon.
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy.
No.
Commissioner Rather.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Cook.
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner Cush.
No.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley. Commissioner Blair. Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo. Commissioner Key.
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch.
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
18 yes, motion passes.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, members, that brings us to the end of the agenda. We do have to move into executive session. Commissioner McAdoo, you want 5 minutes?
Well, I know we could take 5 minutes, but need 5 minutes before we go into executive session. But I had a question for our county attorney.
Yes, sir.
Got it on Zoom, and the four commissioners are at their house or wherever they're at, I don't know. They might have a room full of people behind them on the side. Will they be included in this executive session?
No, that is a great question, Mr. McAdoo. If there is anybody that is zooming in that's a commissioner that has any family members or other people in the room or around the area, they need to be removed. So it's only the commissioners while we go into the executive session.
Thank you.
Does everybody that's zooming understand that? Let's take 5-minute recess. We'll come back in and go into executive session. Okay, members, we'll call ourselves back into regular order after coming out of executive session. We can take up any old or new business. Any announcements? Commissioner P.
Do you want me to go ahead and get
That you asked for announcements, the Kittrell.
Go ahead, Commissioner. Statements or announcements?
Since you asked for announcements, Kittrell Volunteer Fire Department is having a ham breakfast this weekend.
Kittrell Volunteer Fire Department ham breakfast. So all those members who are low on potassium, please come out and buy a plate and get your salty country ham. This Saturday.
Saturday the 19th.
Saturday this week.
It's always on Saturday. Oh, this week.
That's from 6 to 10.
Yes. Any other statements or announcements? Okay, members, we're back with our attorneys.
Thank you,
Mr. Christensen.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Commission, for entertaining your attorneys in that executive session wherein we relayed to you a good bit of information regarding the current status of the Gertz et al. Versus Rutherford County case, and where we also requested authorization to settle that matter based upon the terms and conditions as recommended and requested by your attorneys in the case. So you all probably need to make a motion one way or the other based upon that information that was relayed to you in the executive session.
Chairman Pro Tem Phillips.
Mayor Ketron, I want to make a motion with regard to the plaintiff's settlement demand in the GERT litigation, about which our attorneys have provided us information in the executive session. Of course, this matter is more difficult for this commission since the county's insurance carriers have to date made negligible offers to contribute toward the settlement of this matter, and certainly have not made what I would term to be an offer of significant contribution. That being said, I move as follows. I move that this commission authorize our attorneys to settle this case up to the amount requested by our attorneys and subject to specific conditions described by them as important to protect the county's interest. I further move that we direct our attorneys to report back to us as soon as possible.
I have a motion and a second from Commissioner Gurley. Any further discussion? Comments? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon. Commissioner David Gammon. Commissioner Piercy. Commissioner Rather. Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Cook.
Yes.
Jernigan. Commissioner Cush.
Yes.
Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley.
Yes.
Commissioner Blair.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens.
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Virgil Gammon.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo.
Yes.
Commissioner Key.
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch.
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. Any other business for good of the order to come before us? Seeing none, we stand adjourned.